Welcome back to Learn SKN, and today we're continuing to look at the May-June 2023 Econ for CSEC paper 2. So we already covered questions 1 and 2, and so we're looking at question 3 today. And what I want you to do is go and like the video and subscribe to the channel so you know when Learn SKN drops another video. Alright, so let's just jump into this right away. So let's go. We're looking at question number 3 today. And so what do we have here for question number 3? Okay, we're looking at market structures and maybe market failure, etc. So we'll just jump into that one time. Identify two characteristics of each of the following types of market structures. So we have perfect competition and we have monopoly and monopolistic competition. So of course, we are going to trust our handy-dandy textbook. Let's jump to market structures and let's look at a nice table here in our book. It outlines them perfectly, so we don't have to stretch too far to see what we are talking about. So let me just zoom up, make the table a little big. Zoom up on this table here, zoom out. All right, folks, let's go. So they're asking us for perfect competition, monopoly, and monopolistic competition. So perfect competition. So if we're looking at the number of buyers and the number of sellers, so these are two different characteristics. So for the perfect competition, number of sellers, many. Number of buyers, many. The product under perfect competition, it's homogeneous, meaning it's the same. All suppliers selling the same kind of product. Market knowledge, or knowledge of the market, perfect, meaning that the seller and the buyer, they have basically equal information about the product, how it was sourced, how it is sold, how it is developed, etc., etc. They know about the product and the market, how many persons, how many sellers, that kind of thing. Price, they are price takers. What this means is that the firms in perfect competition, because there are so many of them, no individual firm can set their own price. Because if you set your price above the market price, people going elsewhere. They're not going to buy from you. But if you set your price below market price, you're losing out, right? You're losing out. So what sense does that make? You're leaving money on the table. As it relates to entry, freedom of entry. There's no barriers to enter into the perfect competition market structure. Then we're looking at monopoly now. Number of sellers, one supplier. Number of buyers, many. Product, it is a unique product. It's the only supplier of that product within that market. So it is a unique product. Market, knowledge of the market, they normally have imperfect knowledge because sometimes the monopolist, the seller, knows a little bit more about the market than the buyer. You have what you call asymmetric information or knowledge. Somebody knows more than the other. Price. The monopolist or the monopoly is a price maker, meaning you're the only person supplying something, so therefore you set your price how you see fit, unless of course government step in and say, okay, you're going too far. You keep digging on people's eyes, you gouging. You have a problem there. Entry conditions, there are barriers, right? No entry, no free entry. You can't just enter a monopoly and become a monopoly just like that. Then the last one, we have a monopolistic competition, where it has the characteristics of both perfect competition and monopoly. So number of sellers, just like perfect competition, many. Number of buyers, many. Product, differentiated, meaning that even though it's the same type of product, they can actually make theirs stand out, differentiate theirs from others within the same market. Knowledge of the market, imperfect, just like the monopoly. Pricing, they are price makers, because if you're able to differentiate your product, then you're able to say, okay, buy mine for a higher price because of this, that, whatever, because it's different than the competition. Entry conditions, low barriers to entry, but there are some, but they are low. So that is part A for question 3. Let's go down to part B. All right, using economic concepts explain the problem created when community members are asked to make a voluntary monthly contribution to public internet access. So let's say use economic concepts. So we're going to use 3 concepts for this one. 3. So let's just jump back to our textbook and let's look at market failure. First concept, market failure. So keep that in mind. That's the first concept, market failure. What is market failure? So the provision of public internet access by community members exhibits market failure, which means that the market has not supplied that good or service efficiently. It's either it oversupplied it or undersupplied it or not supplying it at all. And so you have market failure, and so it leads to the creation of, in this case, a public good. So a public good is a type of good that they have some characteristics that we're going to get into, right? So provision of public good. So there is a market for public goods, yet no private firm are willing to supply these goods. This is a case of missing market, a cause of market failures. That's from our textbook. So it's a provision of a public good. So what exactly is a public good? All right, so a public good, one cause of market failure might lie in the provision of public good, as stated before. Public goods are goods that are collectively consumed by society. So you see what I said, the community coming together to consume the internet service. They possess 2 characteristics, non-excludability and non-exhaustibility, meaning that you cannot prevent persons from consuming that good or service, and your consumption of this good or service doesn't really diminish someone else's. Now, I pause it to say, is it CXC level, so understand what they're saying, but understand that internet access it is not non-exhaustible, because if I'm downloading a lot of stuff, I'm going to take away from the bandwidth. The bandwidth is not infinite. So just a side note, but I understand what they're trying to say. So you cannot exclude anybody. Of course you can if you put on a Wi-Fi password, right? But that's not the point here. The point here is that they are looking at public good, and so those are 2 characteristics, non-excludability and non-exhaustibility. So you cannot keep out anybody, and someone's consumption of it does not diminish your consumption of it. Now the problem though, right? Let's say explain the problem created when community members are asked to make voluntary monthly contributions to public internet access. The problem is what we call free riders. Free riders. And so these are people who do not pay for a good or service but enjoy its benefits. Those are the free riders. And so what you find happening is that a little bit of people might pay for it, and a lot of people enjoy it because you can't exclude them, and so that's a problem. And so you come to a point where now people are gonna get fed up and say, okay, look here, I ain't paying no more, and eventually you might end up not providing that service, or that service will be provided at a lower level than is required by the market. So that's the major problem here with this concept. The free rider, persons benefiting, but they are not paying for it. All right, C. Indicate whether the following goods and services are merit goods or public goods. So we already look at what a public good is. Let's look at what a merit good is before we go into the options. Merit goods are goods which the societal benefit to the community of the consumption of the good far outweighs the private benefit of the consumer. So let me break that down. Merit goods are goods where, when community on a whole consume those goods, then there's a benefit to the individual, right? There's a benefit. There's an overarching benefit. The more the community consume this good, the more it benefits, right? So the consumption by one person the consumption by the community far outweighs the benefit for private individuals. And the example people love to use is vaccination. If everybody gets vaccinated, then that disease or whatever would not be as prevalent in society on a whole. But if 1 or 2 persons just get vaccinated, then is still going to be out there in the community, right? So keep that in mind, what the merit good is. And so let's see what they're talking about here for the choices. So one, primary school provided by a private organization. So education is always a good example of a merit good, right? Because the more educated society is, the better off the country is on a whole, and the better off society is on a whole. If I'm the only scholar in a community where everybody else didn't go to school, they drop out of school, it's gonna be problems. Because me with my degrees, gonna be fighting against crime and that kind of, because person's just not at that level. But if everybody's at that level, you can uplift society, uplift the community as a whole. And so can everybody be more educated, benefits society as a whole. National army of a country, so that would be more of a public good, right? More of a public good, because you can't exclude nobody. And my protection doesn't diminish your protection, right? So you have both of those characteristics. Healthcare. Once again, healthcare is a merit good. As I said before, the more of us who are healthy, who are vaccinated, who are disease free, the better it is for society as a whole, right? Because imagine you have a healthy population, more productive, less days missed from work, so the community as a whole going to benefit. Lighting of a village along the main street. So light street lamps are normally examples of public goods. Again, I cannot exclude you from enjoying the public light. No, if you're enjoying it, doesn't mean it's going to dim for me. So cannot be excluded, cannot be diminished if I use it and you also use it. So again, we have here merit, public, merit, public. Good, good. All right, D. Think that's okay. D. So assume there is no government in the town of Roadville. Table 1 shows the demand and supply schedule as well as the marginal social benefit for road repairs. The marginal social benefit is the total benefit to society from consuming additional units of a good. All right, good. So we have a whole schedule here. The price per pothole, the demand schedule, supply schedule, and then we have the marginal societal benefit. Question 1 for this one asks us, identify the cause of the market failure in Roadville's road repair market. All right, so the cause of the market failure here is externalities, right? The provision of externalities. In this case, positive externalities, right? Positive externalities. So you see what externalities are? Externalities are a spillover effect of production or consumption that falls on a third party. When externalities are created, the market also fails. The producer and consumer are the two parties to the transaction. In the course of producing a good or consuming a good, a third party might be affected. The third party is external to the transaction. The third party might be affected negatively or positively. When the third party is affected, this is an externality. When the third party is affected negatively, this is an external cost or a negative externality. When the third party is affected positively, this is an external benefit or positive externality. So that's the one we're looking at today, the positive externality. So that's the answer for this one. The cause of market failure, positive externality. Now down here asking us to use information in the table to explain the market failure identified. Okay, so with positive externality, we are saying that it can lead to the under provision of a particular good. Why? Because consumers are only concerned with their own private consumption, right? I mean, human beings, we're inherently selfish, right? So if you look at the schedule, you can see that the marginal societal benefit is always greater than the demand. It's always greater than demand, meaning that the demand, if you satisfy the demand, there is still some benefit that can be had. And so if you look at, let's say the first one, demand is 2, supply is 14, but the marginal social benefit is 6, so it's greater than the demand. And so you can see that we need more people contributing to the pothole repair if we are to meet the so the marginal social benefit. So it's still short. It is still short of at least what, 4. So at $80, enough people aren't contributing, right? Because they're not contributing, so therefore there's under provision of this particular good. So demand is 2, supply is 14, social benefit is 6, so it's still greater than the demand. Right down here, rate is 50. Okay, supply and demand are equal here, so market equilibrium. But yet, even at that point, supply is 8, demand is 8, there's still benefits left on the table. And so persons are still not contributing enough, because I realize that the marginal social benefit would have been, is still 12. So you still have some, it's still not being provided, nothing not being provided to match the marginal social benefit. Even at the equilibrium, we have 8 being supplied, 8 being demanded, but the marginal social benefit would be 12, but it's not up there yet. So you can see that. So basically what we're saying here is that we look at, it's a positive externality, but it leads to the underprovision of the good, because persons are just concerned about their own private demand and not how society will benefit on a whole. And you can see it from what is laid out in the table before us. So in a nutshell, we could just simply say the positive externality causes persons to demand, right? Demand less than what is societally beneficial. And so there'll be less provision of this particular good or service, right? So that is that part. All right, so that's it for this particular question. So what we want to do is, again, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when Learn SKN drops the video for question number 4. All right, thanks for watching, thanks for listening.